Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. This time we're going to be drawing this tiger nose with coloured pencils. So if noses on cats, either big or domestic, is something that you struggle with, then this is going to be your handy little guide, and we're just going to go through some processes and colours to help you get to a realistic result. So the first thing I start with is a accurate outline, and to do this I just used the grid method. So I just sketched up a 1 inch by 1 inch square grid and then transferred my line art that way. And the first thing I'm actually going to start with on this is the darkest areas, so mainly the nostrils, because they are the darkest feature within the nose. So what I do is just take a dark sepia pencil and just very gently sketch the outer outline, so it kind of looks like a whale tail when you kind of sketch out the shape of the nostrils, and just kind of leave it blank and not filled in like this. Before I go in and fill in as well, I'm just going to take a white pencil and add in any whiskers. So I'm using a white pencil here. I'm using the Prismacolor white. This is quite opaque, and often you can't add other colours on top of this easily because it's like really nice and waxy, and I'm just using a really hard pressure to get that in. But you can use something like an embossing tool, or you can add your colour down and then etch out later on with a scalpel or something like that. Once those main areas are in, I'm then going to go in and fill the nostrils with the dark sepia pencil, and then add the top edge line of the nose, so you get that really nice mushroom shape of the cat nose. And then going to darken up the nostrils by going in with some dark indigo and just really kind of creating a nice dark deep colour. So not necessarily just layering loads of black down or some dark sepia. I'm going in several different directions here as well to try and create a really nice smooth effect, just with some dark sepia and that dark indigo as well. One thing you want to make sure is that you get a really dark area right next to the curvature of the actual pink part of the nostril, and then as you're coming out towards the outer edge, you just kind of want to leave it a little bit kind of unblended, so you've got some of that paper showing through. So you want really nice dark, almost burnished colour right up to the nostril edge, and then at the outer edge towards the fur you just want to soften it up and lighten it. I've just gone in with some cold grey 2 and just lightened it up a little bit at the edge there, and then just continuing to get a little bit darker right up to the pink bit of the nose. To start the actual colouring of the nose, I'm using a cinnamon or a light flesh base, and again I'm not necessarily following any certain direction for this. I'm kind of using a small circular motion and going back and forth, kind of shading in a downward motion, and then on a second layer shading in a crossward, so horizontal motion. Once that initial base is down, and then going in with some Indian red, I believe this colour was, or some sanguine, and just adding in some of the darker parts within the nose, so at the bottom of that little mushroom shape and in the very centre. And to blend that, I'm then going in with that first initial base colour and just really kind of softening it up. I'm also using some orange to add in some of those orange tones, so I think what I used here was some burnt ochre, and then again using that light flesh or that cinnamon to just blend everything out. To add some shadows in here, I'm pairing the orange and the yellow tones with some purple and some red to create some really interesting and dark shadows, and also then going in with some dark indigo and some dark sepia to really darken up that bottom part of the nose. I'm also using a little bit of walnut brown to add some shadows in as well, but mainly going in with some, I think it was some mauve that I used for this, and mixed it with some Indian red and sanguine, and I'm using that mauve as well to go along the top edge of the nose to create a really nice dark effect, rather than going straight in and using like a dark sepia and creating more of like a muddy kind of brown colour. I'm using that mauve to create a little bit of a different colour, and it's just creating a really nice shadow effect on the top of the nose there. I'm also going in and just darkening the edges of the nose, just using some more of that sanguine, some more burnt ochre, and blending with that lighter tone pencil, and then adding in any small details that I can see on the nose, like any spots or anything like that, with some of the walnut brown and some dark indigo as well. And as you get darker with your colours in your nose, you do need to make sure that you additionally enhance the shadows as well. So make sure that as you get darker on your lighter areas, you get darker within your shadow areas as well. So don't get to a point where you're kind of matching the shadow areas with the mid-tone areas. You want to make sure that you continually develop all of the different tones within a certain area rather than just working on one individual tone at one time. So just to recap on the kind of technique that I used to create the texture of the nose, we're not using any particular direction like you would with fur. You're using like a circular motion, creating a series of ovals, kind of like how you would create like a tornado kind of effect like at school or something, and you're going in several different directions as well, so you can create a really nice smooth surface. So try not to go just in one direction, try and go in several different directions, or use a circular motion with your pencil to get the smoothest coverage. So then on to the fur, and the colours that you use will obviously depend, varying on the colour of the fur of the cat that you're drawing. So maybe you're drawing a tabby domestic cat, you're going to be using a different base tone and all of the other tones, but I'm just going to go through the basic fur method of blending from the nose and into the fur. So I'm starting on the left hand side. As I'm right handed, I want to work from left to right, and what I'm doing with the fur is working it from the nose and following the direction of the fur, so it's kind of coming in a diagonal motion, kind of coming down towards the bottom left hand corner. So that's the kind of direction that I'm shading in. I'm using a light pressure when shading and going back and forth, just following that fur direction. That's really important at this stage. So you want to switch from using like a circular motion on the nose to create that smooth texture to just working in one direction for the fur. To blend the darker outer edge of the nostrils into the lighter fur around, all I did was just take some of the dark indigo, some dark sepia and some mauve, and I just lightly shaded again in the direction of the fur down into the lighter fur, the white fur in this case, around the nose on my tiger, and also just made some small tapered fur lines, so really kind of pointing the pencil down where the nose sort of ends and then lifting the pencil as you work the direction of the fur, so getting a really nice kind of soft lifted effect at the end of the fur line. I'm also working back from the white area into the darker area so that you kind of get a bit of an overlap of the fur as well. Just helps to make it look a lot more natural and a lot more effective. So when you're working from your nose into any type of fur, you will have a little bit of shadow from the nose going into the fur. So you want to just make sure that you follow through some of those darker colours from the outer edge of the nose and follow that through to your fur, so you get a really, really nice blend. And similarly, when you are doing the mouth section, if you've got a really dark mouth section like I have on my tiger here, what you want to do is follow the same principle as you did for the nose. So you're going to put down a nice dark base in those dark areas, and then to transition some fur on top, you're just going to work from the dark area back into your fur area. And then if you've got any lighter fur strokes kind of sitting over the top of a dark area, I used here a slice tool just to etch away some of those fur lines that are sitting over the top, so they're really, really nice and prominent. But you can use an embossing tool to put those down at the beginning, or you can use a white gel pen or something like that to add in those white fur lines. So when it comes to going onto the top of the nose, with cats, it's really important to remember all of the different directions and everything that goes on the nose, because there are so many different directions. So at the side of the nose, that little top of the mushroom shape, you've got some fur that is kind of coming down and almost like into the nostril, but as you go into the middle of that little mushroom shape, you've got fur that is going straight up the bridge of the nose towards the forehead. So you've got a lot of different direction changes with the nose on the fur here. So you want to make sure that you really pay attention to your reference photo when you are creating that area of the fur. And my suggestion here is to do what I've done here, is just take small sections. So I've just done a little section at the top of the nose and just roughed out the direction of all of those fur lines before committing to doing the whole thing. So I've got a really rough idea of the directions directly above the nose, and then I can just gradually fill in the rest of the fur around that nose and add in the directions as I've dictated on that little small area above the nose. It's just so much easier to do it that way, and you don't confuse yourself either. So again, it will vary depending on your reference photo and the type of cat that you're drawing, but on my tiger here, the top of the nose wasn't very blended. We had this really, really prominent line directly above that pink area of the nose, and it wasn't as blended as like the nostril area. So I didn't have to spend too much time kind of adding in some fur lines to blend that line in, but your reference may vary. You may want to take the same approach as what you've done around the nostrils, and you may want to blend in that darker line above the nose a little bit more. It depends on your reference photo, so make sure that you analyze that and know kind of where you have to blend and where you've got those really kind of bold, stark lines of one initial colour. So for the orange fur on the nose here, all I'm doing is putting down a really nice light base. I used an ivory base mixed with a little bit of cream, and I also used some yellow, and then I'm just going in with some burnt ochre and some terracotta, and again working in the direction of the fur that I denoted on that little white band that you can see across the top of the nose there. So I'm following the directions that I put down there and adding in the fur lines, keeping my fur lines really nice and short and keeping them really nice and tapered so they really blend into one another, and also using a bunch of different colours and everything to try and create the shadows that are present as you kind of work from the nostrils and up the sides of the nose there. So you'll see again as the kind of work around to the right hand side of the nose exactly how we blend out that nostril. So you just want to keep in mind the fur direction. So obviously on the other side of the nose the fur is going to be going in a slightly different direction. So on the left hand side it was coming towards the bottom left, on the right hand side it's obviously going to come towards the bottom right hand corner. So you want to make sure that you follow the fur directions according to your reference and make sure that you get that in right. I have often drawn something and I've done one side of the nose where it's going in the bottom left corner, and then I've come across to the other side and then I followed the same direction as the previous side, so I've kind of got like this weird sway of colour around the nose. So just make sure that you follow the reference photo and go either side of the nose, so coming in diagonals coming off of the nose on each side. But that's pretty much it for some very short techniques and tips on how to draw the nose and the fur surrounding the nose. I really think that small areas of study like this are really good for developing your skills and just getting really familiar with the anatomy. I would really suggest that you go and take a photo of your own cat if you have one, or find a big cat reference on Pixabay or something, or have your own reference and just crack out a small nose study and just see how much joy you can get from just creating these one sort of really small individual body part studies. They are really fun to do, and you really do get familiar with all of your different techniques that you're going to be needing if you want to venture into doing full portraits. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and if you do want to follow along with this in real time and a bunch of others, then you can head on over to my Patreon page or my website where I do have this in full along with a whole bunch of others. Make sure you check it out, the link is in the description below. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this one and learnt a small something from it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!